Hello, and welcome to our presentation of our oral history. I'm Oriana Campailla,
And I'm Stephen Fredrickson.
and today we will be discussing Dr. Death and the two parts of the introduction and the 3 days in Dallas. So I'm going to start with the summary. So this starts in the 2010s with the Doctor Christopher Duntsch. Christopher Duntsch at the time was working at Dallas Medical Center, and he was the only neurosurgeon at that hospital, and he specialized in spine surgeries. So there was suspicions about Dr. Duntsch. Dr. Duntsch had botched many surgeries in a very uncommon way. His patients would come in being fine, being able to walk on their own, but having pain in their back, and they would leave being completely paralyzed from the waist down. The suspicion started with two patients, one, Floella Brown, and two, Mary Eford. Now, Floella Brown was a retiree woman who, before going into retirement and traveling with her husband, wanted to resolve her back pains. She came into the hospital with a surgery with Dr. Duntsch, being perfectly able to walk with a few pains, and by the end, she was not only paralyzed, but died a few days later from being brain dead. While Floella Brown was brain dead in the hospital, Dr. Duntsch did not even worry about his patient or worry about his botched surgery. He went on to do a surgery on Mary Eford, which ended up with, again, she came into the hospital able to walk with very severe back pain and came out not being able to move. She became a quadriplegic. At that time, Dallas Medical Center realized that there was something wrong with Dr. Duntsch. He often came into to work seeming disoriented or came in late. They decided to call Dr. Henderson. Dr. Henderson was a very trusted surgeon in the Dallas area. Now, the uncommon thing of this is usually when a doctor noticed that something is wrong in their own surgery, they call another doctor to help them. It's usually one doctor to another trying to help the patient. But this was an unusual case because the actual hospital called Dr. Henderson, meaning that there was something severely wrong. When Dr. Henderson walked into the hospital, he noticed that Dr. Duntsch seemed uninterested in his patients being in malcondition and uninterested with hearing any expert information. Dr. Henderson's fears of something going wrong with Dr. Duntsch, which he at first thought were just he may be an incompetent doctor, turned out to be severely mistaken when he talked to Dr. Duntsch's head nurse in the operating room, Kyle Kissinger. Kyle Kissinger had been a very experienced nurse, and he often told that when he walked in on spine surgeries, the blood that often came from the patients were light. Sponges would come out being slightly splotchy with red, but when he went into the surgery of Floella Brown, the sponges were soaked with blood, soaked red. And not only that, blood was flowing out of Miss Brown's body and onto the ground, meaning that there was something severely wrong with the surgery. But not only that, Dr. Duntsch didn't seem at all concerned. He just kept going with his surgery, even though the other nurses, the MRI doctors, said to stop and that he should stop and ask for an expert's help. He said that everything was wrong, and at all that resulted in Floella Brown losing too much blood and being brain dead. But not only that, the second thing that struck Dr. Henderson's nerve was that at the second time, Mary Eford was in so much pain after her first surgery with Dr. Duntsch that she needed to have another surgery. Dr. Henderson wanted to do the surgery. At least he wanted to sit into the surgery. But the morning of the surgery, Dr. Duntsch was nowhere to be found. And not only that, when he came, he gave certain people who didn't need surgeries, and constantly saying that more people needed more surgeries. So Dr. Henderson stepped in and did Mary Eford's surgery. And what he found when he opened Mary Eford up was something stunning. He saw that screws were in places they shouldn't be, that tissue, that there was blood loss. But not only that, he thought that Dr. Duntsch wasn't an incompetent surgeon. He knew exactly what he needed to do, but purposefully did everything opposite of it. Now, at this point, he realized that this obviously was medical malpractice. This was murder, practically. So he decided to stop the surgery, turn on a recorder, and he recorded the surgery. And he recorded everything wrong with Mary Eford's surgery. He arrived to the point where he said that Dr. Duntsch removed nerves from Miss Eford's body in order to make sure that she could never move her legs again. This was purposeful. And it was very unusual for Dr. Henderson to do because he was such a respected doctor. He thought that everyone did good at their job. So for him to start a crusade against Duntsch meant that this was a serious problem. And at this case, and at the end of the 3 days in Dallas, it started off saying that Dallas Medical had too much paperwork to even have a litigation against Dr. Duntsch. They didn't even want to deal with the fact that Dr. Duntsch might be a murderer. No, instead they decided to just fire him, revoke his privileges, but not having a bad review, meaning that Dr. Duntsch just went on to another hospital to create more crimes.
Is it my turn to speak?
Yes.
Okay. So now that we've discussed all of what's happened in the oral history, we need to discuss who was talking and discussing the events that were going on. And the first person, and probably the most interesting one, is Mary Eford, which was, as mentioned earlier, was a patient of Dr. Duntsch's. She was paralyzed from the waist down, but as said earlier, she was able to have other surgeries done on her, so she was able to survive that, but at the cost of being paralyzed from the waist down. The next person is Kyle Kissinger, who was the nurse that worked with Dr. Duntsch, and she explains, the experiences she's had with working with him. And the last person was Dr. Henderson, who was the person that fixed Mary Eford and helped the people who got messed up by Dr. Duntsch. And so now let's talk about our own oral history of the events. And I began by doing additional research on Christopher Duntsch, and I learned that he was responsible for the death and maiming of 33 patients while working at hospitals in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, which is a lot for a doctor with a doctor who's supposed to be perfect at doing stuff like that. And during a lot of these surgeries, he was under the influence of cocaine, which is something that you really shouldn't do. And then, is there anything you need to add?
Yes. So, like Steven, I did my supplemental information, but instead of that, because Steven did such a great job explaining the other supplemental information, I discussed the punishment that that Dr. Duntsch received. So, in February 20th, 2017, Dr. Duntsch got convicted and charged and actually prosecuted with the death of 4 patients and the maiming of 2 other patients. As you may have noticed, Steven said that there were 33 people that died and were maimed. Although the prosecutors wanted to make sure that Dr. Duntsch ended up in jail, so they only charged him with 4 patients and of death and 2 of maiming and medical malpractice, so they could make sure that if he didn't get convicted with this one, they could go back. But he did. And he got life in prison, and his charge was harming the elderly, and the ill, as well as 2 counts of first-degree murder, 4 counts of first-degree murder. So that was the supplemental information that I received. Now we want to go to our personal experiences and personal opinions with this.
Can I start with this
Yes,
part?
of course.
All right. So first, I would like to say I have an experience of my own with botched surgeries, and it was actually a surgery that happened, or it was actually during my birth. The doctor messed up like how I should have been born, like how I should have came out of my mom, and he twisted my arm, and it almost permanently injured the arm, and I had to get just because of his how he messed up. I guess it's not really a surgery, but he messed up the birth. I had to get multiple surgeries after that to fix the arm, and it's still to this day is damaged because of it. And it gives me, fear every time I got to go into the doctors that something like that doesn't happen again. And I'm glad that this doctor has gotten charged for what he's done, and so was the one that messed up my surgery.
Actually, I have a very similar story to Steven's. So I like Steven, the doctor that delivered me was actually he decided that my mom could deliver in an improper place, and that I was born with jaundice and severe problems where I could have been permanently damaged mentally if they hadn't rushed me to a hospital. But not only that, when I was born, I had 2 hernias on my pelvis region, and they messed up the incisions, so like I have scars now about it. And as well as that, I also had bad experiences I had an oral surgery where the doctor cut my bone wrong and I had severe pain. So I've had many experiences of small injuries to my body and small medical malpractices. Nothing like the ones that Dr. Duntsch did. I feel like it is terrible. As they said in the recording, these people, you think that you can identify what a bad doctor or a good doctor is going to look like. But when you're in so much pain and you need so much need, you put your hands into this person that that's supposed to help you and supposed to make you better, and instead they make you worse. Now, in our cases, I bet that both of our doctors didn't do it on purpose, and although Stephen, as said, had pain in his arm and has fear, and I also have fear of the doctor. This one is taking a person that had a slight pain and making them permanently paralyzed. That is life changing and is so terrible. And I didn't agree. I listened a little bit to the update saying that like they shouldn't persecute doctors because now that just means that if they have a few more deaths and death rate, that they mean they're incompetent and they can't do their job. I don't agree with that. I think that all cases should be looked at, and the reason why there's so many deaths should be analyzed, because in the case of one doctor, maybe it's just a mistake or he's going through something. But in the case of Dr. Duntsch, he was purposefully killing people, 33 people to be exact.
Yep. And if things like that go, unnoticed, that's how Dr. Duntsch got away with so many of his murders, is because nobody was questioning it until like later on.
But not only that, the hospital negligence of the hospital not even persecuting him, not even stating to the other hospitals, hey, I've noticed a little bit of medical malpractice in his case. No, they just sent him on his merry way. So he started terrorizing other hospitals in that area.
Yep.
I mean, that's just terrible.
Mm-hmm. All right. Is that everything we need to add?
I think I'm looking at our document. I feel like
Okay.
everything's good. We've stated everything. Yeah. Thanks for listening. Again, we really hope you enjoyed our analysis of the Dr. Death series of the 3 Days in Dallas and the introduction. Again,
Yes.
I'm Oriana.
And I'm Steven, and if you're wondering where other two group members are,
Uh,
one of them is going to be
Tariq is
listening to this. Yeah,
Tariq.
you can explain.
Yeah, Tariq wrote to me and said that unfortunately he can't come to this meeting here today, but I will send him this video right away, and he will be giving his opinions on the PowerPoint. Our other group member, Gabriella, we didn't hear from. I emailed her personally, and we unfortunately did not hear from her. So maybe hoping that if I maybe send it to her, she'll send me something. So yeah, hope you enjoyed.
Yep, that's everything.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
I'm gonna stop.